Hi everyone, my name is Carrie O'Brien and I do the digital marketing for the DigiVac company. Today's webinar will be on our Bullseye Precision Gauge, which is our portable vacuum gauge with graphing capabilities, multiple units of measurement, and optional Bluetooth. On the agenda, I'll have an overview of the gauge and why we created it. I'll go over some features and benefits of the gauge. I'll offer insight into the graphing and analytic aspects of the gauge as well as the Bluetooth, and I'll offer you some answers to frequently asked questions. If there's anything on this agenda that you don't see that you'd like me to address, please let me know. Okay, if there are no suggestions, I will move forward. So, why the Bullseye gauge was created? It was first manufactured in 2014, and we created it because we wanted to give our customers a versatile portable gauge that that was more than just vacuum readouts. So we created this gauge to offer the portability, graphing, and analytics, as well as other benefits, as well as other features that I'll address later on. We also wanted to make it easy to use a vacuum instrument. So the Bullseye is fairly straightforward. It's easy to use, it's handheld, and you can take it from place to place. So what is the Bullseye Precision Gauge used for? It's used in a few different industries, and those industries are manufacturing, laboratory, and HVAC. There are other industries in which the gauge can be used, but those are the most popular that we see amongst our customers. And the applications in which the gauge is used are for short path distillation, transformer dryout, and splink line monitoring. So vacuum experts can use the precision gauge to monitor their vacuum pressures both in the lab and in the field, meaning if they need to go somewhere and test a vacuum system, they can do so with the Bullseye, or they can test it within their own lab on their own property. And it's also used to manufacture on an HVAC line. So the advantages to using the Bullseye Precision Gauge are that it has graphical displays. It allows you to visually to see visually what your vacuum pressure is and how it changes over time. It's slightly easier to understand than just reading a whole series of numbers back and forth. You can see where the pressure rises and where it drops. It also has a 70-hour battery life, which is a long-lasting battery, which is ideal for the field. And it's field calibratable, meaning that you can calibrate this gauge on site without complication or confusing instructions. It also has Bluetooth capabilities, which allow you to connect the gauge to a smartphone or tablet using our Bullseye Precision Gauge app, which is called Vacuum Gauge, and it allows you to monitor your readings from your phone or tablet. And the battery, it also has battery or wall charger USB, so if you're using it within the lab on your property, you would most likely want to use the USB charger for long-lasting tests, because with a 70-hour battery life, that's great for the field, but if you're running a test over a series of days, you won't want to be replacing batteries constantly. Are there any questions about these advantages? No? Okay, I'll move forward. So the accuracies of the gauge are from the range of 1 to 99 millitorr. It's plus or minus 2 millitorr, or 20% of the reading. From 100 to 2,000 millitorr, you can get an accuracy of plus or minus 10% of the reading. And from 2 to 6 torr, you have plus or minus 25% of the reading. So to visually display the accuracies along a graph, you can see where the accuracies run consistently up to 10 torr. They split apart and gain different ranges between 10 and 160 torr, and then they come back and sort of run in a straight line again after 160 torr. And this is just a side view of the gauge itself using the kickstand that comes with the gauge, and that's great if you need to set the gauge down. You don't have to keep picking it up in order to look at it. It's propped up for you, and you can see it on whatever surface you have it sitting. So some of the specifications of the gauge are that it has 12 different measurement units, including torr, mbar, bar, kPa, inches of mercury, millimeters of mercury, millitorr, microns, inches of water, psi, and psa. That allows for the use of the gauge in multiple different industries and in a number of different applications. It also has CE and RoHS compliance. It has a strong magnet for mounting, which is different from most gauges. This gauge has a magnet on the back of the gauge. I apologize, you can't see it in that image. I thought you would be able to. It has a magnet on the back of the gauge, so you can literally just put it against a magnetic surface next to your vacuum system, and you won't have to worry about needing a shelf or table for the gauge to sit on. To go into a few customer examples of the gauge, there's manufacturing on an HVAC line, which means that you can use the Bullseye Precision Gauge to monitor commercial refrigeration systems and make sure everything is dry and leak-free. You would do this by plumbing the gauge itself into the vacuum system and seeing if it maintains pressure. Another customer example would be short path distillation, and the gauge can be used to verify that the vacuum is at a level needed for the short path distillation to occur, and you can monitor the vacuum level through the duration of the distillation. So you would use the gauge, if you can see in the image on the right, to sit there and monitor the pressure within the distillation process. And you can see when the pressure is rising and dropping to make sure it's at the appropriate level and not above or below what's needed. Another customer example would be is a customer of ours that uses the BPG for vacuum pump baselining. So you can baseline your pump or you can baseline your vacuum system. To baseline your pump, you would plumb the sensor on the end of the Bullseye Precision Gauge directly into your pump to see what it's reading. And when you get a pressure, say 50 torr, you know that that's as low as the vacuum pump will go. And then you would plumb the system, the gauge into the vacuum system itself to see what it's reading and make sure everything is accurate and lining up properly. If it's not, then you know there is an issue within your system that needs to be checked. So to move forward, analytics and the digital calibration of the gauge. You can see your vacuum analytics right on the gauge itself. You can switch between the settings and look at the analytics of the gauge. You can view it in graph form. You can see a leak pump. You can see if the pressure is stable, or you can see if it's outgassing. The image to the right you can see is a vacuum pump graph, and you can see where the pressure is and where it's dropping the torr per minute. You can also use the calibration operations within the Bullseye to calibrate the gauge in the field. And to do that, you would, as I said before, go into your settings, switch down to calibration, and then on that screen you can set the different units for what's needed to work within your vacuum process. And then the line graph and bar graph displays that are available on the Bullseye are the line graph is the pump down graph that is shown within a linear pressure scale that is fit to the pressure range of the data set. And you can see that by looking at the numbers in the upper and lower right-hand corners to see where the pressure was and where it ended up, and the number in the upper left. Sorry, I apologize. Numbers in the upper and lower left-hand corner. I said right-hand before. You can see where the pressure started, and where in the upper left-hand corner you can see where it ended up with 1.05, and that would mean that this system is stable. And the bar graph visualizes the current sensor readings with a 6-stage step bar graph. So as I brought up in the right-hand side of the screen is the 6-stage steps, but I only displayed 5 of them because it demonstrates the process in the same way. You can see in each stage a new bar is created to see if the system is pumping, if it's stable, or if it's leaking. And then the Bluetooth capabilities of this gauge are the connectivity to the vacuum gauge app, which is our mobile application available in both the Google Play Store and soon to be available in the Apple Play Store. And this the gauge itself can sync with with any phone or tablet using this app as long as you have it downloaded on your phone. And you can set low and high alarms right from your phone, meaning if you need the gauge to read within a certain range, you can set a high alarm for where you don't want it to go above, or a low alarm for where you don't want it to drop down below. And then you would hit set high or set low alarm, which you can see in the image in the lower left. And if the system goes above that, the alarm would go off. If above or below, the alarms would go off, and they would sound until it is manually stopped by a technician in the location in which you're working. So you can also view real-time graphs on your phone, and you can send a CSV file with your readings via email from the app. So you could send the information immediately to your colleagues if it needs to be seen by somebody off-site or somebody in a different location of the building. You would do that by hitting send email, and then this screen would pop up and it would let you send mail through these options. And then when you decide you want to send it and who you want to send it to, you can see that the CSV file is automatically uploaded to the email, and it would be an attachment that the recipient can view. The graphical app displays allow you to view the pressure changes in a clear and easy to understand way. And the app itself allows for real-time graphing, which can catch sudden increases or drops within the gauge, within the pressure. So you can have the graph open on your phone, and you can be watching the pressure changes in real time in a time that you set of once every minute, once every hour, once every 5 minutes if you choose, or you can do it within a matter of seconds or 1 day. And then you can see what the vacuum is. You can see when the system is pumping down, or you can view your readings in a line or bar graph. And that's an image of the Bullseye gauge pressure being read on the vacuum gauge app and displayed within a line graph. So the items included in a standard Bluetooth order for the Bullseye are the vacuum gauge controller, the thermocouple sensor, and then a sensor cable that can connect the gauge to the controller, or the gauge controller to the sensor. I apologize. And then an AC adapter that allows you to plug the gauge into a USB port. And then everything's tested under actual vacuum against the NIST standard. So to visualize exactly what you would receive in an order, you can see the the gauge controller itself, along with the AC adapter and the line cord adapter with the micro USB end. You can see the sensor cable along with the sensor itself and the sensor connector. And this is everything that would come standard within a Bluetooth order. The only difference is a non-Bluetooth gauge would not be able to connect to the app. So in addition to the features that I've stated before, there are options in which you can choose to include or exclude upon ordering, and that's Bluetooth, the use of an Agilent variant 531 or 536 sensor. You can choose a weatherproof Bullseye, which is the Bullseye controller in a weatherproof casing that allows for more protection. It might be convenient for those testing vacuum systems in transformer dryouts. You can choose to have a KF25 fitting, or you can you can also choose to use vacuumnetwork.org, which is an added feature to the Bullseye app. It goes along with getting the Bluetooth gauge, and you can switch directly over to vacuumnetwork.org and use vacuum control. The vacuum controller gauge ID and customer ID you created within the Bullseye app itself, and then you can log into vacuumnetwork.org through those credentials and see your vacuum system from anywhere in the world, as opposed to within the 300-foot Bluetooth range that comes standard with the app. It extends the functionality of the app itself. You can also get a calibrated sensor or a NIST calibrated sensor. And the images I just brought up are the weatherproof Bullseye. You can see that it's in a weatherproof case. There's also the gauge with the an image of the app. We've actually updated the app a little bit, so this screenshot is not 100% accurate, but you can download the app and see how it would look. Exactly, all of the functionality is the same. We just improved some quality on the app and changed a few of the visual aspects of the interface and made it capable to read with vacuumnetwork.org. And vacuumnetwork.org is what I just brought up on the screen. You can see the customer ID and gauge ID. You would create those within the app by dropping down in the settings menu to share with DigiVac. And by doing that, it would ask you to create the customer ID and gauge ID. Then you would surf on over to vacuumnetwork.org. It would bring you to a login screen, and once you logged in, you would be able to see the system pressures itself. And this is a KF25 fitting that you can add on to your gauge, or you can choose a variant sensor. And then the quick start guide that you would do as soon as you get the gauge is to install the batteries and press the power button to make sure that everything turns on and lights up and looks correct. You would plumb the vacuum sensor into your vacuum system, and then you would plug the sensor cable into the sensor, and you would verify that the readings make sense and are accurate. So you would make sure it's reading accurately within the system that you're plugging into. So if it's reading atmosphere at sea level, you would look for a reading of 600 to 760 torr, which would be normal for that environment. Some of the frequently asked questions we've received from customers over the time that the gauge has been released is that they need to measure vacuum in both PSI-A and M-bar, and can the Bullseye do this? And the answer there is yes, because the gauge has 12 measurement units, and both of those measurement units, PSI-A and M-bar, are included within the standard readings. And then, can I use it to measure vacuum drying? The answer there is yes, the Bullseye is actually a great tool for that, and you can stick it to the side of the vacuum oven while it's drying to better monitor the process. That would read into the strong magnet aspect I mentioned earlier. You could stick the gauge itself to the vacuum oven, and it wouldn't move anywhere from that unless somebody physically picked it up. And then, can the Bullseye be used in all weather conditions? And the answer there is that the regular Bullseye in the blue case that was primarily seen throughout this presentation can't, but the weatherproof Bullseye can. You would just have to order, upon ordering, specify that you would like the weatherproof one. And then, how does the Bluetooth app work? And that I have found to be an interesting question, because it shows that customers are curious about it, and it syncs with your gauge via the Bluetooth, via low energy Bluetooth, and it allows you to see your pressures readings, view real-time graphs, and observe pressures in different units than the gauge itself is displaying. So once the gauge is synced with the app, you can change the measurement units right on the app, switching from torr to M-bar to feet to to TSIA to KPI, and the pressures would convert accurately on the app, but if you had it originally set to torr on the gauge itself, it would remain in torr. It allows for additional observation of the measurement units. Say you need to know it in both millitorr and MBAR. You can have the gauge set to millitorr and switch over to MBAR on the app. Neither one will affect the other, and it will allow for better monitoring. And then, why are my readings near atmosphere erratic? And the answer there is that because the gauge is set to high resolution and is giving too much, it's because the gauge is set to high resolution is giving too much information. If you change it to read to be a low resolution, the reference readings will quiet down and be less erratic. And then, can I send my gauge in for repairs if needed? The answer there is yes. We have a $155 starting price for repairs, and if additional fees are needed due to broken aspects of the gauge, we would discuss that with you before moving forward. And a brief summary of everything that I've discussed here is that the Bullseye is a high-performance portable vacuum gauge with the 12 measurement units that I've discussed earlier, and that it's the world's first vacuum gauge with Bluetooth. I've mentioned the app, but I don't know if I've stated that this was the first vacuum gauge that was capable of reading Bluetooth and reading on a phone. And then it's equipped with vacuum analytics that can quickly identify vacuum pressure trends. So it allows you to be quicker in understanding the vacuum pressure trends that are happening within your system. And it's a field-ready gauge that can go from site to site with ease. And it's also CE compliant when used with a 536 sensor. I apologize. Are there any questions regarding the Bullseye Precision Gauge or the app? No? Okay. Thank you for taking the time to join this presentation, and I will send everybody a copy upon closure. Have a great day.